It's hot. It's a hot out here. How y'all doing? I'm coming back from work. Haven't checked the charts yet. Well, we're gonna do that. Trading journal. So here I want to talk about system development. I have a system, right, and I modified it for back testing. And I think it makes sense to just use the back testing system for my live testing because the results are so good and it's easy to copy. So, trading's super hard, right? It's hard to find an edge, and even if you have an edge, it's hard to execute that edge. It's hard to execute that edge for a lot of reasons. And for a lot of reasons, for emotional reasons, your emotions may influence you. If you're excited, you might think you see something or take on more risk. If you're very anxious, you might close at the wrong time or ignore a signal, avoid trading when you should. It can also just be cognitive. It could be. One problem that I've had with different systems is they can be too discretionary, too difficult, so the back testing is unrealistic, and also it's really hard to know if you're committing an error or not. So you may be committing an error, an emotional-based error, an impulse-based error, but it's really not obvious at the time because the system allows too much freedom. So I really like, what are we optimizing for in a system? We think, well, you optimize for annual return on investment. That was the first thing that I was optimizing for. Like, I want to have a high annual ROI. Okay, so you could optimize for risk reward. I want to have a high risk reward per trade. I want my losses to be a lot smaller than my wins to be really big. You can optimize for win rate. I want to win a high percentage of my trades. And those are all things that I looked at, but there's two things I'm looking at right now. I want to optimize for two things. One is monthly ROI 10 or greater. Having a good chance of doing that. The reason that's important to me is because of funding challenges have insane risk reward if you can do them, and it's a great way to build capital and also reduce stress because challenge money doesn't feel like real money because it's not. So I'm finding it's a little bit easier to trade challenges psychologically. Now the second thing, so I'm optimizing for monthly return, one, and two, before we move on to two, when we're optimizing for monthly return, we want a high win rate, we want a decent risk reward, and we want a sufficient number of trades. So the system's printing like 10 to 15 trades a month at a 70% win rate with a 2 to 3 RR, which should be good enough to pass challenges a lot of the time, even with errors. Yeah, I mean, trading every day in theory, if you have edge, but there's not necessarily a high probability trade setup that appears every day. And even if there is, I don't necessarily actually want to trade every day. Like, there's a part of me, the compulsive part of me does want to trade every day. But if I were to design my lifestyle to have the best lifestyle, it wouldn't be trading every day. It would be trading high probability setups 3 times a week, a couple times a week. You know, less is better, but enough that I consistently pass those challenges. So I'm building a system to pass challenges, right? The second thing to optimize for is simplicity, keeping it simple so that I can execute for a couple reasons. One is I want my backtesting data to be accurate. If the system's hard to execute, the backtesting data won't be accurate, right? Live testing needs to be similar to backtesting. It should be obvious when there's errors, relatively obvious when there's a signal. There's always going to be some errors, but there should be fewer, right? And yeah, that is just to keep the errors out of it. Like, when you have too many options, too many parameters, too much freedom, it's just so hard. So the back-tested system, which I dumbed down, I made it as simple as possible. What is it? Well, you interpret the daily candle close of Bitcoin and ETH, and if you get matching signals, you market enter right at the opener close. So what did I do by this? First off, in terms of eliminating possible errors. Any entry in the morning is an error. Any entry in the evening is an error. Only entering right around the daily candle close. Everything else is an error, right? Entering right at the daily candle close. Everything else is an error. Okay? Using any other indicator other than the daily candle close is an error. So there's no reason to go to the 4 hour. There's no reason to go to the 1 hour. It's an error to go to lower time frames. It's an error to use Fibonacci. It's an error to use trend lines with the system. There's systems that can use these things. But with the system, how I backtested, if I want to live test like backtesting, I'm not using liquidation data. I'm not using, what else have we eliminated? I'm not using support resistance. I'm not using weekly or monthly charts even. It's just the daily candle. Like I'm not looking at volume. There's no MACD. There's no CVD. There's no RSI. Any of that's an error, right? It's all an error to use that Elliott wave. It's an error. Really simplifying. Fair value gap. Setting a limit. Like, there's too much discretion in, okay, I got my signal, now I'm going to go in the low time frame and have a retracement to a fair value gap or to a fib level, and I'm going to look in the low time frame for an exit trigger. No. Market enter at the daily close, set a FAR TP. If it doesn't get hit and you get an exit signal, market exit 24 hours later. Really simple. So, and I have the data that tells me if I just follow this, I have a good chance at passing challenges every week, and also making a good living. And before with other systems, right? Like, if I can trade at any time, I can react at any time, then I should be on my toes. I should be ready to respond. And it's unclear what an error is. By restricting my action to not a range of time, but an exact time, 2 p.m., I should be on early to prepare for that close. And I need to spend other times on the chart to practice and to work on other systems and so on. But it eliminates, like, if I want to do something at night, it's an error. If I want to do something in the morning, it's an error. If I want to trade another asset, it's an error. And yeah, I'll commit errors, but it's obvious what those errors are, right? I want it to be super obvious what the right thing to do is, what the wrong thing to do is. And if it's going back to my, the system I was building at the start of the year, it was way too complicated. Way too many corner cases. It was like a diagram. The diagram, the flowchart was like a maze. Now it's really fucking simple. It's in code. It's like a couple lines of code. It's so simple. But why does it work? Why does it have edge? That's a good question. And I'll tell you, it works for Bitcoin and ETH, but when I'm trying to slap this system, on Forex USD pairs, it doesn't work. I guess there's just different players in the market, but it works well. First, because the daily candle is an extremely good signal. It's a small enough unit that it offers frequent enough trades, but it's a big enough unit of time that there's 24 1-hour candles in there, 24 times 12, 240, 250, 264 5-minute candles in there. There's such a good signal, and a lot of bigger traders do trade off the daily chart, so you're trading with that. It gives you time, it gives you confirmation, and by forcing Bitcoin and ETH to agree with each other, if you're going to take a trade or take a trading action, it eliminates a huge amount of false signals, because if Bitcoin and ETH are acting different, then it's sort of random, right? If Bitcoin and ETH are acting the same, it suggests that the whole market is moving, right? The market is moving or about to move. It's not just one of them, and it's too discretionary. If one is doing one thing, you think, okay, Bitcoin's going to follow ETH, or therefore it should break out too, or no, ETH's going to follow Bitcoin, therefore it should fail also, right? That's gambling. But when you have confluence of these things should behave the same, then odds of success are significantly higher. So for me, I haven't taken a trade, feels like in a couple days, and that's good. Like, my stress level's down. I am having a profitable April. It's not the best month, but I'm back in a place for the first time since last September where I have an extremely simple mechanical system that has excellent backtesting data. But the problem with that time, September, is it didn't produce 10 winning trades a month. It produced 3 winning trades a month, or 1 or 0. It didn't produce enough trades. And since it didn't produce enough trades, I couldn't pass challenges, and also I couldn't rely on it for consistent income. So that caused me to go into other systems and try new things out, overtrade, whatever it is. But now I have a system that, okay, it's easy to execute like my first system. It has provable edge like my first system, but it's a lot more robust. It has a much higher win rate than my first system. It has less risk reward, but that's fine, but it has a much higher win rate. And it trades a lot more frequently. Twice as many trades at least, which is important. Show you guys the view here. Alright. Home sweet home. I am blessed beyond imagination. Blessed. So getting to my destination here, so much glare. Sorry about that. So I'm gonna go look on the charts and see what it is, see if there's a risk to put on. Figure that out, okay? Much love and peace. You got it? cruising through my neighborhood on a warm summer night. Feels good. Well, it's a spring day, but you get the vibe. Okay, so point is, like, I want to optimize my system for monthly return and ease of execution. So that's what the system does. It has a good monthly return and it's simple to execute. And it has a relatively consistent monthly return too. In theory and backtesting, it's done well in live trading, but I've also made a lot of errors too. But it hasn't stopped me from being in profit. Oh, here we go.